Welcome to the Ol'Timers comic book show, with a show where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. Now, this week, it's an all British affair. 13th has got some stuff going on. The professor is at a comic con. Who would rather go to a con than hang out with me? I have no idea. So I've got one of my British colleagues on the same side of the Atlantic as me for a change. No time zones to worry about. Let's bring him on. It is Alan.
Hi,
Hey,
you
man.
all right? How's it
All
going?
good. Hey, man, it's all good. All good. If anybody wants to know, on all the previous shows that I've said I'm a Geordie, Alan's actually a Geordie. All right?
I live pretty close to Newcastle. Yeah,
And there you go. That's the difference in our
that's
accent.
accent. Tiny bit of accent different. That's it.
Yeah, I'll wait, man. By the time I'm done, I'll be sounding like you for sure.
Probably will be.
It doesn't take much, honestly. It doesn't take much. Alan, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's your first time on the show. Are you nervous?
A little bit, but I've heard lots about your show, and your wife told us a lot about it.
The infamous Mrs. H. So for everyone, Alan works with my wife in their day jobs. So there you go. That's cool. So Alan, before we get into the show proper, tell us a little bit about the comic book history of yourself. What sort of stuff you're into?
Well, it's I've got a bit of an eclectic taste in comics, to tell you the truth.
Cool. I like this already.
Yeah. So I read literally from my favorite character is the Rocketeer. I love the Rocketeer.
I love the Rocketeer.
It's classic.
Oh man, yeah, Dave Stevens, love a bit of Rocketeer.
I've got a shelf dedicated to all the Rocketeer. I've got the bust, I've got the stuff like that. I've got all his books, I've got the sketches, I've got the whole lot. I love the Rocketeer. But then on one side you've got the Rocketeer, and then I've got Transmetropolitan, and I've got East of West, and Planetary. Planetary is one of my favourites.
Cool.
But of course, Batman. I love Batman, Superman. Who doesn't?
Who doesn't love old cowl face himself?
He's class.
Cool.
But yeah, and also Star Trek, Star Wars comics, Transformers. It's always there to keep me finger on the pulse for them, because I don't know if you've read it, but the Transformers comics out now, the new ongoing, fantastic.
That's a nice little change up of the original idea.
It is.
Sci-fi wise, Mrs. H has just got into Battlestar Galactica, like the old one, the 80s.
The original, with Lorne Green.
Mm-hmm.
Tell her not to watch 1985 Battlestar Galactica.
No, we're not going to watch that. But what I will say is, next time you speak to her at work, by all means, feel free to ask her about Starbuck and Apollo. That would be great.
I love it. I love it. I love it, Battlestar. And the new one as well.
Yeah, the reboot's cool. You talk about Rocketeer. Had you seen the old Archeo serial King of the Rocket Men?
I seen it on, I can tell you exactly when I seen it, BBC Two at 6 o'clock in the morning over Christmas.
There you go.
They had it on then with Flash Gordon was on. So they had Flash Gordon on. But yeah, used to watch that. But and then of course, I think that was, the Rocketeer movie must have been after that.
Yeah.
So then I seen that, but it's the Rocketeer was the first time I ever seen a superhero without tights or a cape. So that blew me mind about him. And then of course we've got the Shadow at the cinema.
I love the Shadow.
I love it. It's Sir Ian McKellen in one of his early rules.
Yeah. Who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
It's a brilliant movie. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I love the Shadow. I love that. All those pulp heroes, they're cool.
But it's I love that.
So we're in good company then. Absolutely spot on. Fantastic. So let's get cracking. This show is going to drop after the big day, Tuesday the 5th. Well, it's a big day for the Brits, but we'll get to that later on in the third book that we're going to talk about. For our colleagues over and our friends over the pond, the big pond, it's the election day. Don't envy. I thought we had it bad, but no. Dear me. So I thought what we do is have a little chat about politics in the comic book world.
Oh yes,
there you go. Because there's been a fair few. If you think
there's been quite a few, hasn't there? And there's even now, a couple of them have popped up every now and again. I think the most recent one I read of politics in was Dark Knight Returns 3, The Master Race, where
we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Do you not like it?
I just think that I don't mind it. I just think it was misadvertised because it's not Dark Knight Returns, it's the Justice League Returns.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right about that.
And I think if they'd pitched it at that, then they would have got more love for it. But calling it a Batman book is a bit of a stretch.
It should have been Superman Returns, I think.
That would have worked. Yeah, that would have worked as well. Yeah,
because it's mainly about him, and it was brilliant. You know, I had it pre-ordered constantly. I even went up to Newcastle to get me a copy before it even arrived in the post. I was that desperate to read it. So I loved it. Mate. I think I read it quite a few times.
It's interesting you bring up DKR3. The daddy DKR's got loads of politics. It's got Reagan, and when you read Dark Knight Returns now, I think it reads more like a satire. Serious political piece.
I mean, I love Dark Knight Returns. It's one of my favorites. I mean, I've got the statue right behind us that way. I've got the CGC of issue 2. I've got the originals. It's one of my favorite books, and like from back in the 80s. I remember first flipping through the pages and my brother, get off that. It's for adults, and it's a brutal book. Brutal. It's fantastic.
Agreed. The for both Bats and Superman. The nuclear warhead scene for Superman absolutely gets me every time. But of course, if you talk about politics, you got to talk about the X-Men. The X-Men are like that huge Marvel metaphor for racism and political injustice, left, right, and center. Are you an X-Men fan?
I was. X-Men was my first American comic I read. That was the first one I ever read. And then, like a good 90s fanboy, I got X-Men 1, Jim Lee, Chris Claremont.
Oh, right, okay, cool.
Read all them up until Jim Lee left. Dove in and out of it every now and again, but I preferred X-Force in the 90s. I think their run was fantastic.
Not the Rob Liefeld stuff.
No. Sorry, not X-Force.
X-Factor.
X-Factor, thank you. Yeah, sorry.
I agree with you on X Factor.
Yeah, sorry. How dare I? Because don't be
dropping the L word in here.
Well, I'll tell you what, Johnny. We were in a bar last night, right?
Okay.
And the bar's got a bit of a comic book theme. It's got like manga artwork on the walls and stuff like that. And my wife's uncle goes to the toilet, and he went, "Alan, you won't believe what they got on the toilet walls." And had they still got the comics down there in the toilet walls? And they went, yeah. I went nip down the toilet. And last time I was there on the trough, you had Youngblood issue 1 all over the back of the trough. So I did leave me mark on that. And
let's just leave that there then. That's Youngblood.
I hate to say I did buy it when it came out, and then I sold it to get Star Trek figures. So it's,
I picked up New Mutants 87 for something like 15 pence in a second-hand bookstore, and I sold it. I sold it for £50 worth of Star Wars comics. That's that. So X-Men, you've got the whole diametrically opposed Magneto, Xavier, different scales. You can read politics in that as well, and of course Justice League and the Avengers of both. Sometimes they're run by a government, sometimes the United Nations, sometimes they do. So, I mean, politics play a heavy part. I mean, do you think that comic creators should be allowed to put political views into books?
Definitely. I think they should. One of the ones I always remember is, have you read The Authority?
Yep.
I love The Authority. There's one of the issues I remember, it's where they use the carrier to rescue refugees.
All right, okay, cool.
They kill a dictator. And it's like, they asked the question, should we be doing this? And I said, well, the governments aren't going to do it, so we're going to step in and do it. And you never really see that in DC and Marvel. You never really see anything like that. I know wasn't there a Marvel artist who got sacked? He had to draw a protest scene, and he wrote something on a T-shirt, and he got sacked for putting it on. But I think that's something very political on that.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Yeah.
There was a graffiti on a wall in an X-Men
Yes.
comic, and the guy got fired. So I think it was Sarif, I think his name is. Sarif,
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
I think I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I mean, when we talk about, politics, they're all through there, aren't they? I mean, you've got some writers who tend to really, really court that kind of political agenda, and I think from my point of view, as a reader, it's a great way to understand there are different political agendas and points of view. You don't have to agree with an agenda to enjoy the writing of someone. If someone's giving you, I suppose, a great example of why this should happen versus why it shouldn't. The whole idea of superheroes doing what they should regardless of government. I mean, let's break it down. That's injustice. That's the video game injustice. That's exactly how it works. You know, nobody's going to put the joke away, so Superman does it, and that leads all sorts of crazy crap after that, right?
It's like that. Well, you probably know, but I love Batman v Superman. I'm a big Zack Snyder fan, but it's that brilliance. It's that scene where it's like, do we need a Superman? Should we have a Superman? And he's like saving all these lives and doing that, and that kind of like points in that question as well. Like, what if he does this? What if he turns evil, or what if that? Yeah. But it's like Superman Red Son. That's a very political.
Great book. Why didn't I think of that? What a great book! This is a bitch. I think, to be fair, I think we've already covered Red Son. So politics in comic books exists across the way.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about 3 books. We're going to talk about 3 different books that have politics as the main kind of thrust, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word, but there's certainly connotations.
There's a big plot to it there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think even though this is one of the later one of the 80s rather than the early 80s, when people talk about politics in books, I don't think you can get far wrong than this bad boy. This is Watchmen. This is Watchmen number 1 from September 86. On eBay, you can get this as little as £15. There you go. So it's worth the money, I think, for that. Yeah, go collect. So if you're looking for dollars, a grade 9 will cost you something in the region of $65. Of course, before we get into the nitty-gritty, the Watchmen is recognized on the Times top 100 books.
Yeah.
It's the only comic book to make it. So to say there are many printings of this book is a misnomer. There's thousands out there. So if you don't want to spend the money on getting the separate issues, buy the graphic. Simple as. It's written by Alan Moore, art and letters by Dave Gibbons, and John Higgins presents the colors. Now, I know that the movie is quite divisive.
Yeah.
I personally like the movie. But the book-wise, what did you think of the Watchmen book when you read it?
It was very good. It was
good start. Well done.
It was I was sitting reading it for the first time, and it's very 80s the way it's laid out, isn't it? It's like you got the 360, you got the 3 panels on every one. Sorry, the 9 panels like that.
Well, see, it is very 80s, but loads of people are doing it this way now. Tom King, I'm looking at you, Tom King. You know you do this. Heroes in Crisis. I'm seeing. Right.
That's what it is, and it works. It has, and if you've got to have a great team, you've got to have a great writer and a great artist, and also great colorists do it all. Because look at all the text in those boxes, and look at the detail in the artwork as well. Mm-hmm. It works so well. And the 80s, I mean, you got this one, like same as Dark Knight Returns. It's just panel, just full of text, and you've got some lovely images. I mean, the one there, the comedian, and the way the coloring works with the flashbacks of how the detectives are going back with it.
Yep.
It's brilliant. But this for me is more of a detective story than anything else. And then it just evolves from there onto something bigger. It's like a big thriller movie, I think.
Yeah.
It's something starts off really small where it's like, this person's died, and then it leads on to something more and something more. And that's one of the best things about it. But then you said you've got such a political backdrop of this, of Tricky Dicky, trying to like hold off a nuclear war, and all the way through it, you've got the doomsday clock ticking ahead, and it's so well done, and it does bring tension to the book. Like even when you're reading it, it brings a lot of tension to what's going to happen to the people. but around the world
Hmm.
with regards to the news reports.
Yep.
And if Dr. Manhattan is going to save, can he save the world, and will he save the world?
Does he want to save the world?
Exactly, yeah. that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because he is far removed from it, like nobody's been. What a great
Yeah.
panel that is! Daniel feeling disheartened, looking at his former self sat there. What an absolute great panel that is there.
I love that. I mean, it's one of my favorite ones is the shot on Mars. That I think that's everyone's favorites, where he's sitting there on Mars.
Yeah,
But it's also when he builds his Mars fortress, his fortress of solitude.
Yeah.
That's brilliant for me. And of course, the famous one with the where he's having the dream sequence and the nuclear bomb goes off.
yeah.
That's
All of it. The Watchmen. I was late to the Watchmen. The book. I was just kind of. It's one of those books I always thought to myself was a little bit too pretentious for its own good.
yeah.
It
I
could,
really, yeah.
everyone's banging on about it. Oh, this. I'm one of the types of people that if someone tells me something's really, really good, I'm going to give it a while because I want to read it and enjoy it for my own opinion and not be colored by everybody else. So my affection for Watchmen came from I bought it for my stepson and gave it to him to read. He was like, "Wow, this is great." So then I picked it up after that and read it a few years ago, and I think the book's great. Did you know that all the characters are Charlton comic characters?
No, I didn't know that. No.
Right.
No.
So the way this works is that DC bought out a whole host of I suppose smaller comic book companies. Fawcett Comics was Captain Marvel or Shazam.
Yeah.
And Charlton Comics had a whole range of heroes. So Owlman is Alan Moore's version of the original Blue Beetle.
Right.
Captain Atom was transformed into Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Silk Spectre is actually Nightshade. Comedian is Peacemaker. And Rorschach is the Question.
I see that. Yeah, I love the questions. People always ask us, "What movie do you want to see get made?" And I was like, "A Question." You know, what's that? And I said, "It will just be a full detective movie. It'd be like Batman without the ass kicking." That's that's basically what it'll be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ozymandias is based on supposedly Peter Cannon, the Thunderbolt, which is a character from
I remember
ages ago. He's been around a few times. I think most recently he's been on Dynamite Comics, so it's from that point of view. Because obviously the idea, and I think what puts people off the Watchmen, at least originally, is that there's no recognizable characters in this.
Yes, yeah.
There's no Batman, there's no Superman, there's no Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But the idea here, of course, the political element is that Alan Moore is writing about a Richard Nixon who has stayed in power after America won the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Therefore, there's no Watergate scandal, and therefore they are the true superpower of the world.
Yeah.
There is a twist in there that people are trying to get certain things moved around, and it's interesting. Dr. Manhattan for me is like a Superman character, and he's too powerful.
Yeah,
it's like the human emotion. The human emotion is the thing that gets him because he doesn't understand it, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. He's like when he grows himself back to being alive, and you see like this flashback of him. We've seen a skeleton float, we've seen a nervous system floating here, and that's him. Not just his body, but he's also his kind of humanity. But he's still so separated from the world. And in a way, it's like Superman. Superman is separated from the world, no matter what. Even though he's raised by humans, he still is in a way separated because he'll outlive us all. It's one of those things.
I think the idea here is, I think I've said this before as well. To be honest, the way Superman humanizes himself is because he's got a supporting cast. It's that supporting cast that brings, without Lois, without Jimmy, without Perry, Superman just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah,
but it's fine.
Isn't there a Superman comic called The Nail where he doesn't get?
Yes, we've talked about this. Yeah, so that's
a good one.
It's a very good one.
Yeah,
absolutely
that's a good one.
Yeah, just to see Selena in the Batwoman costume.
Yeah. But it's also what's happened. They said it's different version of Superman here, but it's like the flashpoints where
Yeah.
Superman's been locked away for so many years, and he's this skinny, scrawny thing. I think you have so many good takes on Superman. There's so many things you can do, and Watchmen does show an alternative, more powerful version of him. And it's
absolutely
good.
Right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Great spot. Great spot. The book is a heavy read, and there's no ifs or buts about it. You're not going to get it through in one sitting, maybe. That said, it is worth the effort.
It is.
If you buy the graphic, you get all the kind of like the text pieces in there. You get the pirate subplot, like 3/4 of the way in. There's a pirate story. Like, what the hell is this all about?
Yeah.
But it's worth a read. Even the parts of it. I'm thinking I want to read more about the pirate stuff. I don't particularly care what's going on. Show me more pirates, man. So you mentioned you're a Zack Snyder fan, so you must love the Watchmen movie as well, then, do you?
I do. I even dragged my wife to it because when we first started going out with each other, so she was in that stage of, I'll come to the pictures with you. And
they all fall for that, Alan. They all fall for that.
Well, I dragged her to that, Star Trek Into Darkness, which was all right. And I got to see Transformers 3 Dark of the Moon just for Pirate Dempsey, and that was it. But and that was the last of it. But the movie, I think Zack Snyder does a brilliant job. And people still talk about it now, saying how it came out at the wrong time because then you had MCU was kicking off then, and this was completely left field. It was like, this isn't comical. There's no humor in this. People are getting blown apart by a big blue guy. He's walking around naked, and it's the 4 hour. His long cut, his 4-hour cut, which he loves to do.
Yeah.
It shows so much more of the book is in it, and he puts some more of his stuff in there too. And some of the cinematography is taken from the book, and he does his own style of it because he's a photographer in the end. That's what he loves to do. But yeah, I've watched the movie God knows how many times, and it's
a good movie for sure.
It's so well done, and I think the cast is spot on. He did the cast so well. But one of my favorite aspects of the movie is I love movie soundtracks.
All right, okay.
And Star Wars and Star Trek. It is the way he does the soundtrack. Like, it starts off with some Bob Dylan for the opening title sequence, and you go through the Minutemen, and you go through all that, and you go through all the time, and the music follows with it. And I think that he does that really well. And it's
times
so
are changing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's so well made. I love it. It's I'm gonna have to watch it again.
Sorry, Mrs. Allen. Sorry.
that and the TV series as well. Did you watch the TV series?
I haven't seen the TV series. I'm kind of like I like the originals. You know what I'm saying? So I'll read. I love the Watchmen.
Yeah.
I read a couple of issues of before Watchmen and thought, this is pants. I don't need to see Anakin and Obi-Wan have a fight to know that they had a fight and a falling out.
Yeah.
All right. I don't need to see it. I've got the Doomsday Clock, which Jeff Johns leaves stuff alone. Just saying.
It's a bit. I've got the Doomsday Clock, and I was reading it. It's good for what it is. You had a good build to it, but like you said, the before Watchmen, the only one of those I really liked was the Ozymandias ones.
Oh yeah, cool.
I was looking forward to the Manhattan one. Didn't really enjoy it, but the Ozymandias ones, I really, really enjoy them ones.
I like the Sil Spectre one because I love Amanda Connor's artwork.
It's incredible. But
I like her work, especially. And people will say Harley, but I say Power Girl. But what do I know?
Definitely. But you should give the TV series a go. The first episode, it starts off with something I thought was made up for the TV series, but it's not. And it's like, and you're sitting there, I Googled it straight away, and I said, did this really happen in America this time? And it's like, yes, this really, and it was just.
And that's the beauty of the Watchmen, is that it uses real events and messes them around. Miller is absolutely an absolute master at this.
Yes.
For sure. And we'll talk about him a little bit later on our later book as well.
Yes.
Good shout. Right, time for a quick break for one of our other shows. So for everyone who kind of loves the adverts, this one's one of my favorites. Alan, might be the first time you've seen this advert. Who knows? Check it out. It is Crisis in the Toyverse. There you have it, Crisis in the Toyverse with Bobo. Yes, excuse me. Yes, he takes the figures out of the packaging. Yes, he plays with them. That's the way it works. Yeah, I'm with you on this one. He's keeping however, Bobo, I've recently seen the Tumblr with the Lucius Fox figure from McFarlane Toys, the HMV, £189. So if you can, get me some mate rates, my friend, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy prices. But like I can't take toy. I took one toy at the box. In fact, I didn't. I got a mate of mine to do it for us. I got the Affleck BVS figure, and he paints up models and he paints up toys. So I said, "Can you work your magic with this?" So he opened it up for us, giving me stubble, some more battle damage, make some colors better. So that was the only one I took out. Well, he took it out. I can't bear to do it. It breaks me heart.
I've got a fair whack. I think I've got a Dark Knight Rises set from pre-McFarlane. I think it is. It's a DC collection, so that's cool. But no, I like figures. I like them. Right. If we talked about politics in comic books, there's a character kicking around Marvel that surely to God must have been involved in politics at somewhere down the line. I mean, the dude wears a flag for a shirt. I'm talking about Captain America. And this is Captain America with the Falcon, Marvel's idea at the time to try and diversify their range of comics. Let's see where this is. I've got some stats on this. This is issue 175 from June 1974. On eBay, you can get this for as little as £12. Remember, if you are using eBay as your source for comic books, remember to check out all the images, look for the wear and tear on the spines and stuff like that. And obviously talk to the guys who are selling the books. You don't want to pay a fortune for a book and then turn up in a different condition that you expected. So take care on that one. Go collect a grade 9 you can get for $36, which I don't think is a bad price for a book that is 1974. So what's that, 26 plus 50 years ago? I think that's all right, isn't it?
Good price. And if it's in good nick as well.
Yeah, exactly. Grade 9, so that's cool. So this is written by friend of the show, Steve Englehart. He's been on the show a couple of times. Steve's a good guy. The art is by the great Sal Buscema, who I absolutely adore on Spider-Man. Inks are by Vinnie Coletta and letters are by Art Simic. Colors are by P. Goldberg. I don't know his first name because, you know what, they ran out of spaces. What can I say? So why is this one? Oops. Yeah, there he is. Why this one? Of all the Captain America books, why do we pick this one? Well, simple thing is, it's a Secret Empire story. Cap and the X-Men, although, to be fair, the X-Men don't do a great deal in this.
No, they don't.
It's a bit of to say the X-Men are guest stars is a little bit of a lame-o, but you know.
Yeah, it's like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Sold. Yeah, Peggy Carter's in this more than they are, and that's something. So, Secret Empire working behind the scenes to try and take over America. Things go on. Peggy Carter, Cap gets captured. All that sort of good stuff happens. The big reveal, of course, is that when we find out that the bad guy, number one, gets unmasked by Cap. Cap's distraught. Who could it be? Oh no, it can't be anyone. It must be someone really massive. At the time of writing, Marvel came out and said, after Steven speaking to Steve Englehart, that no, it wasn't a real person. It's just a comic book president. Since that time, Steve Englehart himself has said quite clearly, without doubt, this is Richard Nixon. So
yeah,
and this is, we think, 1974. We're talking Watergate scandal. We're talking all the disillusionment that happened in America around that time, reflected in this comic book, which goes back to the question I asked at the start: should politics be included in comic books? Well, I think, obviously, I'm speaking for people here, and I apologize if I get this wrong, but if you lose faith in something that is so powerful like a presidency, look at Cap. He's distraught at the end of this issue. He's done for. This leads him to quite a dark place. Originally, he was going to throw in the towel and be replaced by somebody else by issue 200. But Jim Shooter 86 the idea and kept him as he is. But this is kind of what we talk about. This is how important it can be to have your ideals, and Captain America is that kind of ideal character, isn't he? He's like,
he's pure red, white, and blue.
Exactly.
He's got the ears as well, but that's that is pure Captain America to the end. But it's I did grow up on Captain America. First issue was Captain America 500.
All right,
and,
okay.
That's the first one I got, and of course I watched the movie when it came out, the first one. But even then, he was still. It was so red, white, and blue. It was so America. I hate to say it, but sometimes now when I reread Captain America, I have the Team America theme tune in my head.
Oh dear.
Yes, but it's. I think as a character, he has evolved through the times, and he's had to.
I think it has to be relevant, right?
Yes, yeah, he can't be. America aren't, unfortunately, not seen as what they used to be. We're not seen as. Some people won't see them as the saviors anymore that they are, and it's the same as it's in Captain America. It's they have to be in they can't be perfect. It has to have mistakes, and I think this issue shows it well. Where he does the reveal and that's it, walks away, and this shows it really well. I think.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think you've got to think when you have a concept of belief like Captain America. And for the record, I will say that The Winter Soldier is by far the best Marvel movie.
It's mine's the first Captain America. I love that.
Right.
It's only because it's basically the Rocketeer 2. That's basically
when you're like, you Rocketeer, you're mad.
I love it. That's basically what it is. And I think it's one of the best comic book movies for MCU because it is a pure comic book movie, and then it evolves because the Russo Brothers basically evolved it. It's like he has the first Captain America. He's still a kid. He's still learning. Second one, he's an adult, and then it takes a very, very adult story, and it's a brilliant movie. Yeah, it's really good.
I think you said earlier that the Watchmen movie came out at the wrong time because it was in comparison. I find that all Marvel movies are plug and play. You could take characters out you could take out some of the Guardians and put in Tony Stark. You could put Spider-Man in there. I could do new people, and it would be the same movie without a shadow of a doubt. At least when DC do their movies, the different tones. So if you want something, if you want something relatively fun, you could watch the standard Justice League stuff. If you want to watch something that's a little bit more serious, you can watch Watchmen. I can watch Batman versus Superman. If you want bonkers, you've got Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey. If you want something a bit off the wall, you've got the Joker. Not the Joker 2 because that's pants.
I love it. I'm sorry, I love it.
Oh man!
Absolutely love it.
I wish I'd known that before I said, "Come on the show."
I was sitting there watching it, and there was like these three people next to us there. And when the cartoon started up at the start, I was like, "This is brilliant." And they're sitting there, and it's like, "Oh, this is, this is."
The fun bit.
So they were just didn't, and then I sat there. I said to me, mate, I went to quote the Joker. They didn't get it. And it was just that was the thing. But no, I love Joker too. I think it was brilliant.
Fair enough. So back to this.
Yeah.
Sal Buscema's art. Do you recognise the name, Alan?
Oh yeah, recognise the name. Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a big Kirby fan. And when I when the cover you showed us the cover, I honestly thought that was a Kirby cover.
Let me get
Because you
back to
can
the
see
cover. Yeah,
there's so much influence there with Kirby, especially
Agreed.
the inking. I know he didn't do the inking, and you know, a lot of the inking did take a lot away of his artwork, but I think I like the inking in it because
Okay.
it influences my artwork as well. Like it's
Okay.
I think when you're inking, you've got to be bold. You've got to say, right, well, I'm going to put this here, and this cover works brilliantly well, and it's the black on Captain America's headpiece. I've
Yeah.
always loved that, and they've kept it on through here, and I think that's a very Kirby style thing to have.
Yeah.
It's really,
It's a really great observation you make. I think I love Sal Buscema, especially some of his later work.
yeah,
It's interesting. Marvel's policy when artists change book is always try and draw like the guy that used to draw it.
yeah,
So it's not like jarring, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So yeah, absolutely right. You know, it looks Kirby-esque in places because it is. They're trying to emulate
yeah,
Kirby because that's what people expect when they pick up a Captain America book. You
yeah.
know, so that's a really good spot to make. Some of the straight lines, the sort of like art is Sal Buscema's art gets a run here, especially jaw lines work really
Yes,
well.
yeah.
The book, it's a 70s book, so yeah, there's tons of text. So again,
Ah,
maybe probably not as much as the Watchmen. It has to be said.
no.
I think Watchmen still wins.
But for a single issue, it's got a lot of text.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on for
I
sure.
do like the change in the angles they're using because normally back in the 70s, it was always just straight on or above. This gives different angles right there. Number one with the hand like that.
Yeah.
And even with the army there, it's so organic, like the way it's going across and moving. You know, I love that in comics when you see actual movement. It works really well. Yeah.
It actually draws your mind's eye through that movement.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I like about it.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's good. That's another great shout. Another great shout for sure. Is it? We have a phrase on the show, and this book is clearly of its time. The fact that this book wouldn't be around nowadays because potentially people are jaded about politics. It's like at the end of this book, it's like the president is tied up to an illegal conspiracy to take control of the states for himself. And we're like, all right, and today we're like, isn't that just a normal Monday?
I think now it's just, I mean, because DC's just brought back Vertigo out, and Marvel don't have. We'll call it an adult line. They don't have an adult line. They don't have an alternative comic line. They just have Marvel, which is a shame because there's so much they could do. I think the closest they came was when they did Marvel Knights with Daredevil. I love that. I'm a big Daredevil fan, and it's I love that story.
That as well. Daredevil fan.
Yeah. I'm a big Frank Miller fan, so it's
that tracks then.
Yeah,
so let me ask you a question then. Do you prefer Frank Miller as an artist or a writer?
I don't know because I read a lot about Frank Miller, and he is an artist. The way he draws, the way he's developed. But I love Batman Year One, and he wrote that.
He did,
and the artwork in that is stunning. But then you look at the artwork for DKR, and it's just. I remember looking at it when I was little, going, "This is terrible. I don't get it." And then when I got older, it was like, I get it now, and it's that's why issue 2 cover is one of my favorite pieces of artwork for issue 2 because I never understood it when Batman doesn't look like that, but then when you read the book, it's one of those ones where you need to read the book to understand the cover, and it's normally the other way around. It's like, we're going to draw you in with this cover for a book. And Frank Miller said, well, no, I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to show you Batman beaten up and destroyed, but yet he's got that grin on his face. So you're going to have to find out why. And it's just a clever cover. And I remember looking at it going, this is not Batman. And then I've just,
I think
What do you think? Do you think better writer or artist?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Well asked.
Yeah.
Writer for sure.
Writer.
Writer, with the exception of maybe RoboCop 3.
Oh,
But
that's terrible.
yes, I went there. But as a comic book writer, I think Year One is my favorite Batman story,
Yeah.
practically of all time. And the writing is just brilliant. It's tight. There's no problems with it. It's straight up does what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns is close, but I find that the older I get, the less I enjoy it.
All right.
Because when I first read it back in the 80s, 90s, I was like, wow, this is great. This is brilliant. I can't believe Batman's so dark and this and that and the other. And now it's just I've got to the point where every character's like that now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's just, as I said earlier, I think it's more satire than anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of, the book itself hasn't changed. My perception of it has changed. It's like I always say, when people talk to me about Star Wars movies, especially the last three, they say, oh, Star Wars isn't for me. They don't make Star Wars movies for me anymore. That's right. They've never made Star Wars movies for you because you're an adult. Star Wars movies are essentially a kid's thing, and you've just grown up. And so you want something different from your Star Wars movie, which is why Rogue One works so well. Because
Rogue One's fantastic. Same as Andor. It's
because it's adult Star Wars. That's so for me, the more times I read Dark Knight Returns, the less I enjoy it. Because but Year One, I can go back every time. Every time I can go back to Year One. Sin City, I love Sin City.
I've never read that.
But
never read Sin City.
But it's some great down and dirty stories with some absolutely great black and white art. But then you get to DK3, as you mentioned earlier, DKR3, and I'm like, the art's lost it for me. I don't. Yeah, fair enough. Brian Azzarello's writing it, but no, the art just doesn't. He's become a caricaturesque of himself, and no. So for me, I think I like him better as a writer than I do as an artist.
I think when he gets young Frank Miller, artist definitely, but all the stuff he's doing, like you said there, in the black and whites. Have you seen the documentary that's came out about him?
No.
He wasn't available here, unfortunately. Typical. But he explains why he uses black and white for, and he's like, "Well, I don't need to use this. I can just, use this just black and white to get the effect, and it works." And you see him in his studio, and he's pouring black paint on, and then he just gets his flicks of white, and he goes, "There you go, it's done." And you look at it, and it's like, "Oh, he's done it. He's done it again." But then when he did the Marvel covers, he did the thing, and people were kicking off saying, "This is terrible. That a child could draw better than this," But I think he needs to stick more to black and white work.
It depends, I suppose, who your audience is.
That's true. Yes.
So before we leave Captain America, just thought we'd have a quick look at this massive splash page. We talked about some Kirby-esque elements there.
It is,
especially on the bad guy. And
you can feel as well. Angle works really well.
You can feel the pain, can't you? Captain America. He's gone through all this grief and people talking shit about him. Pardon my French. And he's like, right, I've had enough, and he proper lets loose, and
it's really good. One for the wall. I think that's definitely a poster for the wall. That right there.
I mean, it's really good, and I'm not going to point out the fact that there's no way somebody's arm is that long to go around.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'll just leave that. I'll just let that go. But as a piece of history, more recent history, if you want to get a little bit more why it was shocking when Cap goes Hail Hydra in the more recent Secret Empire storyline, maybe you should check this bad boy out. Captain America 175. There you go. Right, last book. Let me bring it up before we do the intro. So, as I mentioned, the Tuesday is the big day states-wise. It's also a big day in the UK calendar. Why is that? I hear somebody else. It is because it is the one day a year we celebrate a terrorist act. It's Guy Fawkes Night or Bonfire Night. Remember the 5th of November. In British history, it's the day that Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament. There you go.
Yeah.
Why is it important? Well, why am I talking about it? Well, this book, V for Vendetta, written by Alan Moore, art by David Lloyd, colours by Siobhan Dodds and David Lloyd, with letters by Jenny O'Connor and Steve Craddock, pretty much uses the Guy Fawkes idea and then runs with it like a million times. The book, it's complicated, this one, so bear in, hunker down. Here's how it works. Originally, it was a serial. So we've talked about this in the past on the show. UK comics back in the day, do not like American comics where you get 22 pages and it's one story all the way through. You get something like maybe 46 pages and you get 5 pages of one character, then 5 pages of another story, like the 2000 AD model. That's British comics. And that's, whenever you talk about British comics, that's the way it works. Even if stuff like Marvel UK, the whole Spider-Man Weekly and Zoids and all that other stuff that came on. So the very first appearance of V for Vendetta is in a comic called Warriors. Warriors #1 is from 1982, and you can get that on eBay for around £50. The actual comic, when it came out, when it was collected and DC put it out as a comic book, it's around $46. Okay, cool.
Well worth it.
I think it is. V for Vendetta, tell me if you think this is right, Alan. V for Vendetta is to Britain what Watchmen is to the US. Yeah. Fair shout?
Yeah, that you spot on, yeah. And I was flicking through it this morning, and it was made in the 80s, was it? Yeah, you can tell it was made in the 80s because the art is so gritty and it's so depressing. And it's well, it is. I mean, and the thing is though, it's a beautiful book. It's beautifully drawn, it's beautifully coloured, and it just looks so well. And it's such a far contrast to Watchmen. Watchmen's bright. Watchmen's very 80s. You've got purples, you've got yellows. This is basically Britain in the 80s. It's
this is great. You can come back. You're making so many great points. It's great. I suppose there's 3 letters that could describe the difference between the colour scheme of V for Vendetta and for Watchmen. MTV.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
MTV happened between the two of them, between the pair of the books. But you're absolutely right. Britain in the 80s, especially 82, 83, dark times.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And it was, I mean, I was born 81, so I've got very little recollection of it.
Oh, so I was at school at the time. I was hitting primary school, so I was just about getting ready to go into comprehensive. So that's for our American listeners. That's moved into junior high school before moving out of college. But no, we were feeling the effects of all sorts of stuff back then. It was,
there was like Maggie Thatcher going nuts. There was protests happening. Yeah, there was more politics that was going on.
Miners' strike.
Yeah, I mean, it happened here in the Northeast, as you know.
Indeed it did.
But it's even when you look at some of the panels here, you can feel the smog when you look at these tiny panels here.
You're right, absolutely
like this one here, and it's some of the panels of V as well are just so well done. Look at that. It's just one color. That's it. Sorry, 2 colors, black and just that pink on there.
Yeah, pink purple. Yeah.
Pink purple works so well.
Perfect,
and then it's so, I mean, how making this character so dark as well is brilliant.
Alan Moore was quite prophetic in this book, and what I mean by that is, as you see it in the foreword, he talks about how in the book things like homosexuality is banned and things
Yeah.
like the way the governments are acting in a certain way. And, when there was collected as a graphic and then put out later in the 80s, we had the AIDS crisis going on. And,
Yes. Yeah.
the government were taking stances trying to make certain homosexuality a criminal act and trying to move away from that sort of idea that you've got to have that the kind of openness that we have now, which I suppose a lot of our younger viewers potentially could take for granted. So when we think about all the freedoms we enjoy now, whether you're LGBTQAI, whatever, you have that because people lived through the 80s, people survived the 80s, and that's kind of representative, I suppose, in this book a little bit. Well, that got serious, didn't it?
It got a bit too serious there, but
that's me.
Yeah. I mean, the way how a lot of it is depicted in here, it is very much you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah.
The leader is in command, and it's we have to show him a different way to work and to live. I mean, it's even the city itself looks poor, looks in dire needs of repair.
There's one of your panels again that you like.
Yeah. I think it's one of the reasons I like panels that for is because of Kirby again. X-Men 17, the cover.
Okay, all right,
it's just red and black. That's all it is. It's just red and black, the cover. And that's it. And I think for a cover being like that back then is really a strong piece of artwork to do.
Yeah. I know you say you're a Jack Kirby fan. I'm going to put my cards on the table. I'm not a huge Jack Kirby fan.
Yeah.
I prefer Dick over Kirby.
Yeah.
And I don't like Jack Kirby's writing either. I mean, I don't like his writing at all. Sorry. But it's so influential for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I do think that X-Men is probably his weakest book.
Yeah.
I think, his Captain America is brilliant. His Avengers brilliant. And I don't know if it's because Stan Lee hadn't fully formulated the idea of the X-Men yet. They hadn't had that mutant.
It was still growing.
Yeah, exactly. Remember the X-Men got cancelled.
Yeah, that's right. I did, didn't it?
And then they came back and got cancelled after something like issue 66 or 67, and ended up becoming a reprint book up until issue 94 in Giant Size 1, which introduced the second gen. So this art, if it is British, you can tell it's British just by looking at it. You don't need to. So if someone asks you where does this book come from, you look at it and go, oh yeah, Britain. That's where it is. But a lot of the details on the faces. Do you remember when Alan Davis had just started on Captain Britain with Alan Miller?
I think so, yeah.
And the zaniness of Jasper and all those sort of like crazy stuff going on. The faces are Davis is such a streamlined artist anyway. But the faces have the same sort of like David Lloyd-esque homage detail level.
Yeah.
And I think that really works. When you're reading the book, I don't know if you felt it, but I felt a little bit disjointed because it is a serial put together.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I mean, it still works well.
Oh, agreed.
But you can definitely tell the way it's all been put together. How there's the problem with the serial right there with it. But I think Moore works well with it. Like it has to try and work well there, and so is David Lloyd there working with it too.
Yeah.
But I think when it goes certain parts of the book, when it's the shift in Evie, when it's her, when the spoiler alert if you haven't read the book, V's the one who tortures her, basically not brainwashes her, reprograms her in a way to see the world for what it is.
For how he sees the world, yeah. And in fact, that proves that he's no different to the fascist running the place.
Yeah, and he gives that speech about how you've been in a prison since you've been born.
Yeah,
you've been this X, Y, and Z, and it's very Alan Moore.
Agreed.
Very Alan Moore speech right there, and he does the same in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Does the same in that, and it's the same in his Superman work too. he's brilliant. He's a
He
brilliant
is.
writer.
He's a brilliant writer, and he writes with strength, and he writes with conviction, and he doesn't shy away from his big ideas. He doesn't worry about, oh, this might cause offense. He's just going to write it. You know,
Yeah.
We talk about the Killing Joke. You know,
Right, yeah.
a book that is super divisive. You know, and it's a book that it's upsetting to read, but it's supposed to be upsetting to read. You know, if you read The Killing Joke and you get to the end of it and you're thinking, oh, well, nothing major happened, then you've, as you said earlier, you haven't got the joke, you haven't got the punchline. There's lots of stuff happens in that book.
I think what The Killing Joke does, I mean, I've lost how many times I read it. It's one of those books, it's a hard read. I think it's a very hard read.
Agreed.
And it gives that different look to the Joker. And the one thing I always remember of the Joker is actually not to do with Alan Moore. It's to do with Scott Snyder on his New 52 run.
Oh,
okay. Sorry, but I loved it. I've got the entire collection behind us, and the death of the family storyline he did with the Return of the Joker. There's a part in that, and it goes back to the Killing Joke, and it's when he's having him and the Joker are having the last standoff with each other, and Batman pulls out a piece of paper, and he goes, on this piece of paper, I've got your real name, and the Joker just flips, goes ballistic, it goes for Batman, and that for me takes it back to the Killing Joke, because the Killing Joke, you come so close to finding who he is. The only thing you know of him was he used to work in a chemical plant, which is obviously how he so good at what he does.
This is just, remember, the Killing Joke's just one origin. This is the idea. You know, that's
his thing.
Shown in the movie is, do you want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah. but it just works. The Killing Joke works so well, and Alan Moore is typical Alan Moore fashion. He gives this dark storyline, but there's also some light at the end of your character, because they've seen the Joker as he was going to be a family man. He was expecting it.
Kid,
I think one of the things as well is he, like a lot of people, he left his job to pursue his dreams, and his dreams failed.
Well,
that for me is a big. Sorry, is like a big factor with like a lot of people in a lot of things. You know, people quit the jobs, you know, to try and become a singer or whatever, and they fail. And I think that part in the Killing Joke is brilliant. It's I don't know what, it's probably just me.
No. I hear what you're saying. I agree with you to an extent. For me, the bits that I like about the Killing Joke is where he's talking to his wife to be, and he's like saying how crap he is, and she goes, "Really? You're great in the sack, and you make me laugh." Right? And that's all she wants. And it makes me realize that we as people, whether it be, you know, husbands and wives, wives and wives, husbands and husbands, whatever, we're not always grateful for the things that we have. We don't appreciate it. You know, she loves him because of he's great in the sack and he makes her laugh. That's it, right? She doesn't need him to be the king of comedy. She doesn't need him to have a great big wage or drive a fancy car. Those are the only two things. And I'll go back to my Star Wars metaphor. I don't particularly want to know, nor do I care what the Joker's real name is, because I don't. To me, it doesn't give me anything.
No.
The only thing that will come out if the Joker turns around to be Thomas Wayne, Bruce's dad, that would be the only thing. Very much like in the Flashpoint series where the Joker's his mum. Right?
That's brilliant.
That is the only thing. That is the only thing that would make sense from a reveal of Joker identity for me. Because I think, other than that, I don't care. I don't care that Joe Bloggs fell in some acid. I don't care if Paul Smith did. I don't care who it is. The fact is, some bloke fell in some acid, came out, he was the Joker.
Aye.
That's it. That's. I don't need the nth detail of that because it doesn't add anything to it. So. But we've digressed somewhat. So, V for Vendetta. So it's a dystopian, post-apocalyptic, and they're always the same. Near future. It's kind of like I said. It's like the UK version of the Watchmen. It is based around the idea that a nuclear winter has occurred, a nuclear war has gone on, and the idea that governments are in control is prevalent in both books. V, in this case, is making a stand against the government. In the Watchmen, it's Owlman and Silk Spectre that stand up against the retirement of the superheroes. So there are some kind of mirrors in both books. I would definitely say, and I don't know if you agree, but V for Vendetta is a much darker book, not just in color, but in like writing tone, in what V does to Evie, to try and, as you say, corral her.
Yeah, it's you're right.
So if you are reading this book, if you pick this book up because you're thinking, "Wow, Alan Moore, great," just bear in mind, in today's world, there may be some triggers in this book for you. So just take it easy. All right.
And take breaks. Take breaks.
Yeah, take breaks. That's a good shout. You know what? I'll tell you a quick story. I read Arkham Asylum, Serious House, and A Serious Earth, and it was absolutely dark and depressive. The first thing I did after finishing that book, I read The Superman Wedding to Mary Jane, which is Who's on Toast. So if you are, just to reset the balance, if you are reading something that is a trifle upsetting, remember, you know what? Put it down, take a break, read something else, come back to it. Yeah, and don't read it late at night. There you go.
It is a heavy read when you go through it, and the artwork makes it very heavy as well.
Yeah.
Even the last few panels are dark.
And I'm not even sure there's a good character in there, I'm not even sure there's a heroic character. It's kind of like there's not a redeeming character in the whole thing, practically.
You could watch the movie if you want to watch the movie and see if but it's a far cry from the book. There's some very, like when Evie's in a cell and she gets the notes passed to her, that part's done really well in the movie. That's one part I always remember that I think's well done in it.
I haven't seen the movie. I've not seen the movie, so
it's loosely based on it, but they've taken some parts of the book, like the part of Evie in the cell, and it's all it's just like that. But Natalie Portman's in it. Yeah. And
no comment.
And that's face fact. She has her head shaved off in it because she plays Evie, and she actually still looks really good with her head shaved. She did Sigourney Weaver as well. But yeah, it's worth a watch if you've got nothing to watch on a Saturday afternoon. Bang it on. But it's that's my review of it.
What a great review of a film. What more could you say? Right, there you go. We're done for our politics special. Hope it's kind of been a palate cleanser for everything you've gone through this week in your voting. I hope whoever you voted for, I hope you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
I don't have a horse in the race particularly, but I know where I'd go if it was me. But I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to say that. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. Alan, you've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for jumping. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem at all. Thanks. Great being here.
Okay, well, I think you're going to be invited back, my friend. Don't you worry.
Love it.
Don't forget to check out the UCPM for all your favourite shows. You saw the advert for it earlier, Crisis in the Toyverse, and of course, check out Comic Crusaders for all the reviews and Al's own podcast, where he speaks to comic book creators from across the Marvel, DC, and indie fields. That's it. It's time for the Bills to go and beat the Dolphins again. So I'm off to go and watch that and cry into my beer. I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. As always, adios.